Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to AMC Movie News and our special, completely 100% spoiler-filled review and discussion of Thor: The Dark World, Thor 2. In case I didn't make it clear, let me be exceedingly clear. This review that we're about to do and this discussion for Thor: The Dark World is not for you if you have not seen the movie yet. This is a discussion for those of us who have seen the movie. We are going to talk about all the spoilers. We're going to go into every detail about this movie. If you haven't seen Thor: The Dark World yet, just add us to your watch later list or whatever and come back and watch it later. You have been warned. Complete spoilers. All right, my name is John Campy. I'm the editor-in-chief of AMC Movie News, and joining me is pretty much the whole crew. First of all, sitting to my immediate left, she is our entertainment correspondent, Erin Darling. Thanks for being here, Erin.
Very welcome. Thanks for having me, John.
And, of course, Mr. John Schnepp.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Dennis Zen.
I'm glad to be on the casting couch.
Again. And
be
Amy Rose Eisenbach.
Also glad to be on the casting couch with you.
Okay, so, once again, lots of spoilers. You've been warned. Okay, so Thor: The Dark World is now out. It's playing in AMC theaters everywhere. Schnepp, let's start with you. Let's go begin with quick impressions. Overall, quick impressions of Thor: The Dark World.
One of the best Marvel movies to date. I enjoyed it so thoroughly. It was fun. It had action. It was an adventure. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was thoroughly surprised at certain segments where characters like spoiler-filled Loki dies. Where certain things happen, and then we know what happens after that. So it's not really. But yeah, I loved it, and it was great. All these guys saw it before me. I think Dennis, you saw it yesterday
I saw it
too.
last night.
Okay, so we both saw it. We saw it with the regular people, but you regular people all got to see that 5-minute Captain America preview too. So that was
which
great.
We did not get to see.
So these guys have to go see it again to just check out that Captain America flavor. And also, spoiler, son, Captain America's in Thor as well. What's up? Bam. All right, next.
One of the best parts of the movie.
Yeah, so awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. It was enjoyable. I mean, I think the main story with the villain was probably the weakest part in the sense of I didn't really care that much about it. But overall, it was a lot of fun and it was funny. That's the thing I came away with was, man, this movie's almost like a comedy.
Yeah, but not funny like goofball comedy.
No,
It was written into the script. The characters were actually allowed to joke a little bit, especially Loki. So
Yeah.
entertaining.
Amy Rose?
I absolutely loved it. It gave me everything I wanted. Yes, it was hilarious. And some of the best parts were when Thor and other Asgardians were mixing in the real world, like on the subway and hanging up his hammer and like all
those
those
so
hilarious
funny.
scenes. And I thought it was the perfect blend of fantasy and reality. It had some stunning visual effects. Alan Taylor crushed it. It really furthered the story arc of the characters that we love so much, introduced some new ones. And I was laughing and cheering, and I just had the greatest time. That's exactly what I want my Marvel films to be, a fun time at the movies, and I had a great time.
Erin, you saw it with me a couple weeks ago.
I did, and you know what? I really liked it. I had a fun time at the movies here. I thought it was filled with a lot of great relationship moments, especially between Thor and Loki, which I thought really was a good payoff for me as an audience member. I really liked seeing what they had going on, and it really did surprise me too. And I hate it when I watch a movie where I can predict everything that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And this definitely had me on the edge of my seat in a couple moments, and definitely surprised me for a couple moments as well. So it was a very fun time at the movies for me.
And for me, I really liked Thor 2. I did not like it as much as the first Thor, but for those of you who watch us, you know that to me, the first Thor is my favorite Marvel film out of all of them other than Avengers. So to say it's not as good as the first Marvel, that I didn't like it as much as I liked the first Thor, that's not a big knock on it at all. I still really enjoyed this film. There are several elements about this film that were better than the first one, as a matter of fact, that I enjoyed just a lot. So, all right, let's go into some of the positives about this movie, which I think is going to probably dominate most of our discussion. Let's start with some detail stuff. In the grand scale, visual effects were great. The performances were great. I had no problem at all accepting the new Fandral. I had no problem at all that it was Zachary Levi. Didn't notice it. Boom, new guy's there. It's okay. We move on. The Captain America scene, you already brought it up.
Amazing.
So unexpected.
That was good.
Did not see that coming.
Yeah, so enjoyable.
Whatsoever, yeah.
Yeah, so
Hold your mic
enjoyable.
up.
So enjoyable.
But one of the coolest things about that scene, though, is he's walking along and he goes, how about one of your new companions? And I didn't think he was going to do an Avenger. I thought he was going to do something else. And it's how good was Chris Evans at acting like Tom Hiddleston acting like Loki.
Yeah.
Do you
That
know the
was
background of that?
amazing.
No, how did that turn
So
out?
apparently, Tom Hiddleston did that scene as Captain America, and then Chris Evans actually did mirror his interpretation of that character,
Wow.
which I think
Really?
is brilliant because he nailed it.
Yeah.
Although the one problem with that scene is he should have been wearing the Captain America outfit from Avengers, not the new Captain America outfit,
True.
because Loki hasn't seen the new Captain America outfit
You know what though?
yet.
I thought he was wearing the.
Foreshadowing.
I thought he was wearing the.
No, he was wearing the
Avengers
brand
one.
new one.
I thought it was blue though.
No, the
was
new
the
one is
darker
dark
one?
blue, but you could tell it's
It's
got
snazzier.
kind of more of a body armor sort of look to it with the
Okay.
star and
Because I thought I was like, oh, it's the Avengers one, not the brand new one. But maybe, yeah.
He
It's like,
saw him on the news or something like
Or
that.
maybe
Yeah.
Loki has seen it. A little foreshadowing.
Right.
I'm just saying.
yeah, but
That
I
was
mean,
such an amazing scene. Our audience, like, that is a film you need to see with an audience, because when that happened, we were rolling
Yeah.
with laughter.
Yeah, people
it was
went
so
nuts.
clever,
That
and I
was
think that
best
Joss
cameo.
Whedon
Great
actually
cameo.
had a part in that particular scene. So I heard.
it's the funny thing too is that the unfortunate part about that scene is as soon as he pops up on screen as Captain America, everybody's howling, right? And they miss the dialogue.
The
Yeah.
dialogue was the best.
The
part.
dialogue
I know, and the
was
dialogue, because
great.
I saw the movie twice, and
Yeah.
so after seeing it twice, I was able to piece together all the dialogue. But as he's going, this uniform's so tight, but I can feel the righteousness
Yeah.
flowing through me,
Yeah.
and it's like,
So clever.
oh, so great. Okay, so let's talk about Loki then for a second. Loki completely shined in this movie. I've always liked Loki. I've liked Loki in the first movie. I liked him in Avengers, but he shined in this. And I remember there was a couple really key moments for me. One, and they all revolve around the death of Frigga, which, by the way, I never saw coming.
me neither. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's that scene where you see he's in his cell, he's reading his book. You can tell the guard come up and told him what happened, and he's just acting cool, whatever, go away. And then he turns around, and first of all, I never knew he had this power, but just clenches his fist, furniture goes flying. And I remember watching this and thinking, you idiots, you just pissed off Loki. And in none of these films have we seen Loki pissed. We've seen him power hungry and tantrumy and all this kind of stuff, but never have we seen Loki pissed. And I remember watching it. The experience I had as an audience member was fear. It's like, I would be afraid of this guy. And I thought he played that so well. And then, of course, the banter back and forth between him and Thor, especially during the big escape scene from
Yeah.
Asgard.
Yeah.
So great. Hey, Dennis, your impressions of Tom Hiddleston's performance?
Yeah,
as
I
Loki.
mean, it was so good that he overshadowed the main villain
Yeah.
of the movie, because
Yeah.
all we wanted to see was more Loki. And also that scene where he's trying to put up a front to Thor, where he's like fine about
Yeah.
the death, and then he reveals what he really is like, and he's just like a shambles of a guy. It's basically the only person, I think he cares for Thor, but I think Frida was the only one he actually loved. So it was great to see that, and the banter was the scene where Thor and Loki are in the ship together, moving.
Flying skiff.
Yeah, exactly. That scene was great, because you really saw the drama, and it's the best dynamic the Marvel Universe has right now. This
Oh, yeah.
Thor
Yeah.
Loki. Like I don't think anything else comes close.
And in that scene, I think my favorite line of the entire movie is in that scene. They're in the skiff. I think Jane's asleep, and they're arguing and bantering, and they're starting to get physical. And Thor's like, "Mother wouldn't want us to fight." And then there's a pause, and Loki's like, "Well, she wouldn't exactly be shocked."
Right.
And I remember thinking that is like, that line just captures the relationship, because I actually think he has deep affection for Thor.
Yes.
And I think we've seen that in all the films, that there's this war within Loki himself where part of him loves his brother, but at the same time is so jealous and hates him so much. And like, I think he also really loves Odin, because at the end of the first Thor movie, we know he led Laufey, and my phone's ringing, ignore it. He leads Laufey into Odin's room where Odin's in the Odin sleep. He could have had him killed instantly. He would have been king of Asgard.
Right.
Instead, his whole thing was to protect Odin, to look good and make his daddy proud. I mean, that's why I love Loki. There's all this complexity to him.
That's what makes, I think, their relationship so fantastic. Is it's not, it's much more complex than we see. I feel this way with the Magneto Professor X relationship too,
Right.
because they didn't start out as enemies, and they still have mad respect for each other. And I think that's what comes down to Loki and Thor as well. And it's just, those two characters, they play so well off of each other. And I know that in real life they have that banter too, and I think that really translates. But yeah, they really, I mean, they listened to the fans here. They gave Loki so many good lines, and I love that scene too, where he's like, no more, what was it? No more images, brother, or no more pretense, whatever
more
the fancy
tricks.
word. Yeah, no more tricks. And then, I mean, that's the thing I love about Loki is that sure, he's the god of mischief and he's fun, but he's also a really damaged character. And he also has had so much to prove, and he always just wanted to be loved by Odin. And sure, there was always this power struggle, but it was just to feel like an equal brother. And once he found out the truth about his past, that changed everything. So I love their relationship, and I love, like you were saying, how it really did, like that scene where they went to Malekith and in the end, and I thought he really did cut off his arm and all that. Like, I didn't see that coming. I thought that was real.
I did too.
I thought it was
I
real
was 100%
too.
believed
Fantastic.
that.
I was
but
completely
Frigga, you're talking about
surprised.
how great was it that we got to see a little more of her and her power and the fighting scene.
Yeah, the fight scene was
That
awesome.
was great.
That's
Okay,
actually one
well,
of the best
I
fight
was going to
scenes.
bring this. Best fight scene out of any Marvel film. The one-on-one fight scene.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Here's the thing, Frigga, in that fight she has with Malekith, she doesn't just beat Malekith.
No.
She kicks his ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She completely owns him. There was nothing close about that fight. Like, when they were going to start the fight, I thought, okay, we're going to see her put up a valiant effort and then take the backhand smack across the mouth and stumble to the floor, and then
so
Thor's going to
good.
come in and save her. But no, it was from the ringing of the bell, a complete ass kicking.
Yeah.
She was destroying him more than Thor was kicking his ass when
Right.
they thought. It was
awesome.
like, it was so awesome to
And
see
that was a
her do
shocking
that.
death. I was so not okay about that. And when it happened, but I thought it really added that emotional, depth to it. That really did help.
they had to bring it in because that's the only way that you could get Loki and Thor to work
Yes,
together.
yeah.
exactly.
If that didn't happen, then there's no way
Yeah.
you would believe that.
Yeah.
Because he's
Loki
the prince
would
of lies. He's
Yeah.
mischief. He's,
Yeah.
You can't get him on
Yeah.
anyone's side except his own. But that's with his mother's death, and that's why they had that scene with him and his mom talking in the first place to just establish that their link. And his death scene is pretty emotional. I mean, Tom
Agreed,
Hiddleston is an
yeah.
incredible
He's so
actor.
amazing.
And I was actually really relieved when he pops up at the end. I was like, thank God Loki's not dead.
Did any of us think he was going to die?
I actually did.
I thought he might.
I thought, you know what?
had a
Oh,
feeling.
I guarantee you, when they finished shooting that film, Loki was dead.
You
And
think?
I guarantee
That's
it.
probably what
'Cause
they
you
brought
know
him back
2
for the
months ago,
reshoots,
2.5
yeah.
months ago, they went back to shoot more
Yeah.
scenes with Loki. Because
Yeah.
even if you watch that last scene with Thor and Odin in the throne room,
Right.
that scene was shot without them ever thinking Loki was still alive. And then because Odin is also saying things in that scene that Loki has no idea about. Like when he says, "You once told me there will never be a wiser king than me." That was a private conversation between Odin and Thor. And I think they shot that whole scene with, this is the end of the movie, blah, blah, blah. And then 2.5 months ago, they thought, we can't have Loki dead.
Well, I'm
Let's
not sure
change
about
this.
that because Jamie Alexander said that they have 2 different storylines and they shot them 2 different ways, and she didn't know even until she saw the movie which way they're going to choose. And also, if that scene was performed the way it was supposed to be, Anthony Hopkins really phoned that last scene in, because I remember watching it and thinking, wow, Sir Anthony Hopkins, what's going on here? Because he didn't act the way that he usually does. So I really think that was
did.
intentional.
I did, too.
I
I
disagree.
catch
yeah.
on to that.
I think
I
that
thought
last
he was just
scene-
like, hey, I've got one son who wants to rule, one son who
One
doesn't.
who won't
What's
take the
gonna-
throne,
Yeah.
one who wants it too
He was
much.
kind of a beaten down
No,
Odin. His
but the
wife
other
just died.
When
you know,
Jamie
it's like-
Alexander told us, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, we did a panel at Kamikaze, and Jamie Alexander was our guest on it. When she was talking about 2 separate storylines, I think she was more referring to the deeper love triangle story that they
Yes.
were approaching,
Yeah.
and that they
That's right.
eventually had to cut down on because of, I think she was injured on set, and it took away a lot of the shooting days that she could do. But we do know for a fact that it was 2.5 months ago. They went back and shot new scenes that involved Loki. Well, what scenes were not in it originally that were in it by the final cut of the movie? The scenes that didn't need anybody else. The guy, the Asgardian-looking guy standing back up in the desert world, looking
Right.
around suspicious, and then walking into a throne room and saying, "Loki, my lord," although who knows? And then that last scene, I absolutely guarantee those are the
But
scenes
what
they
about
reshot.
leaving Asgard to chase the Dark Elves and all of that? Like, maybe they added that scene in? I don't know. I feel like there's a couple that might have been added to just be a little richer.
A few pickups. I'm sure they added a few pickups. I mean, we don't know
Yeah.
until we read,
No.
when all the tell-all comes out. Maybe they added that Frigga scene
Such
with
a
him
good
and his mom. We don't know if that
Right.
was like, oh, that'll add more subtext if we're going to bring him back. Let's, because it's always like a work in progress. Once you start rolling, it's like the script is there, and then you just keep adding to it, subtracting, adding on. They have writers on set. It's like, so.
Yeah,
What
but I
a-
think
what an awesome
they did a really
triangle.
good job with establishing a lot of these relationships, as I mentioned before, like the freedom moments and the moments that we see between Thor and Loki, which are so interesting because I feel like their characters really define one another, and they're kind of the yin and the yang of that family. And I think it's so interesting to see what they did with this film, because you really get to get a better taste of what both of these characters are like under the surface. And I think that Tom Hiddleston had an amazing performance, a lot of opportunities there to really show us what Loki's really about, and I really appreciated seeing those on the big screen.
And this was a different Thor. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
he was much more mature
Grown
and
up.
less playful and grown up. And even in that beginning scene with Sif, he wasn't drinking and prancing around like he usually does. And they established that very quickly. But I liked seeing that. And I think Chris Hemsworth is a really solid actor. I really felt the progress and the change that's happened in Thor since the last time we saw him.
Talking about Loki, still on that thing, I loved in what was apparently his death scene, the fact that I love the decision Alan Moore made to have Loki.
Alan Taylor.
Taylor, sorry. Alan Moore is a very different person. To have Loki save the day at the end. Because first he saves Jane. Then he wipes out Malekith's dudes, comes back and takes care of the Cursed. When Thor was having a very difficult time with him. So I love how they did that. They just they found a way in this film, without making it feel overcrowded, to expand on all of the characters other than the Warriors 3 and Sif.
Right.
They were used. We'll get to that in the negatives. I thought they were underused, but
Yeah.
we learned more about Odin. We learned more about Frigga. We learned more about Thor himself. We learned more about Loki. I just thought it was handled really great.
We learned more about Asgard.
And,
Yeah,
more
all
about
these
Asgard,
extra
yeah.
That
scenes
was a
is really
huge
great
positive
scenes
for
with
me.
instead of just that one consulate scene that you'd see in the Rainbow Bridge, you got to go all around Asgard, which is great.
And battles on Asgard.
Yeah.
That's what I thought
Right.
was
Yeah.
missing so much in the first. I wanted more combat on Asgard
Yeah.
because it's such a rich, beautiful thing. And I think Alan Taylor's take on that too. It's just, introducing us to more of the realms and then just continuing that path that Kenneth Branagh set with Asgard. I thought he crushed
I gotta
it.
say,
Yeah.
I was blown away by the action sequences, so much so that I can't wait to see it a second time, because I didn't expect
too.
them to be that good.
Right.
I mean, sometimes it's more like, the first Thor was more of an actor's set type of a thing with a few big set pieces. This had big set pieces, big action throughout the entire film.
Also, I felt like the ending fight action sequence in this one was much better than in the first movie. I thought the action peaked in the first movie in the middle.
Yes.
When they battled the Frost Giants.
Right, and the Destroyer was kind of an
That
afterthought.
wasn't even in the middle. That was like in the first act.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was I guess the high peak of the action. And this one, it was just all the way through, and the
So
last
well
one
choreographed,
going
too.
through the different realms.
Unbelievable.
That was really
and
a
constantly
cool
trying
idea.
to keep his hammer. He keeps missing his hammer.
Yeah.
They had this through line going through, which is so incredible to me. Like, being a Thor fan since I was a little kid, to see Thor use his hammer and fly is just a dream come true. And in this movie, they do so many really cool shots, like him just jumping off a cliff, and then his hammer comes in and he goes poof.
Yeah.
Like, that to me just made me so happy that they did these little flourishes, like, for super nerds, like extra Jack Kirby freakout fans like me. That's how I took it. It's like, you've got all the story, you've got all the amazing actors, but then you have these little flourishes that just some special effects nerd was like, a Jack Kirby fan is going to flip, a Walt Simonson fan is going to flip on this. So it's great. Like, Malekith is a character created by Walt Simonson, and he's really well used. I mean, if you read the comics where he was introduced, it's very similar. And they use the similar story, except he didn't have this ether thing. But that's kind of a tie-in with all, as we find out later, the Infinity Gauntlet. So
That's a good transition. What did you think of Malekith?
I thought he was well served. I mean, I liked that he wasn't like the big bad, because I really liked the ensemble and the family aspect of this movie and how they brought Jane Foster back in, that I didn't really need Malekith to be a big part of this film. It was more so for me like, all right, he's the plot line. He's bringing this ether that Jane is a big part of. It's inside of her. So that's part of Thor's like, hey, I need to save the woman that I love. And, my dad doesn't care about that. He wants her off Asgard. Well, screw him, So it creates all this conflict. So
I felt the same way. I thought that Christopher Eccleston is such a fantastic actor. And I liked that he was more subtle and more calculated and very intelligent. I feel like he had a lot going on, not your like big baddie that we see a lot of the times, and he did kind of weave that together. And I love the Dark Elves language and all of that. I thought he was a very rich character, and that he was very, deliberate and patient and had a lot to bring to the table, because we didn't see that one, every scene that they're in together, there's so many other players involved as well. But I thought he was fantastic.
It usually bothers me when I don't like the villain in a movie, especially in a movie like this, like a Marvel movie, or even Man of Steel. I really hated Zod as a villain because he was not formidable at all, in my opinion. And in this movie, it also didn't bother me that I didn't feel like he was scary enough as a villain. I was very happy with his role being minor because I did enjoy so much of the other things going on in the film so much more.
Yeah, I gotta say, I think Malekith bothered me more than the rest of you. I thought he was a very weak villain, and I think you're right. I think he was, as a character, he was really just a plot device. He was just a plot device who I still, by the end of the film, I've seen the movie twice now, I still don't really know why he was trying to destroy the universe.
Yeah, I had the same issue as well.
And it was all, and he was completely one-dimensional. I'm going to destroy everything. Ooh. And that's it. There was no dimensions to him. I didn't feel any menacing thing. And here's one of the things that really bothered me. Okay, so if an army from Earth, say some Mesopotamian army from 5,000 years ago, were suddenly time shifted and jumped to here, what country on this planet would they pose a threat to? None. They'd be walking around with their wooden shields and very, loose swords, and they run into one guy with an Uzi who would take out 1,000 of them. In this film, Malekith and his Dark Elves, they're fighting Asgards 5,000 years ago, and Asgard is so technologically crippled that they haven't developed their technology one bit in 5,000 years, that a 5,000-year-old army can show up today and still take out your capital planet. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, how would have Asgard stood up against these guys if they were that much more advanced than them? That in 5,000 years, Asgard hasn't developed something that could stand up against them. It seemed like a lot for me as an audience member to buy into. So to me, that was an issue. Did any of you guys notice that, or did it just not bother you?
No, that part didn't bother me, but just Malekith as the villain, he is a plot device. He's just there, to kill their mother, and then have Loki and Thor get together and team up. He was fine for that purpose, but they could have made more of a motivation, like revealed what his motivation, because other than he just want to see the world's into darkness, we really don't know why.
Well, he's like a little bit like the Joker. He just wants to see the universe burn.
Chaos.
They established it in the very beginning. For me, that was enough. That it's like, hey, look, the Dark Elves don't play fair. He's like, I'm going to kill all the rest of my Dark Elves so that I could go to sleep and then eventually get my revenge, which means murder everyone because they lost. So he's a sore loser. So, it's really basic. That's why I wonder. To me, I wondered if he would be a little bit more on point if they actually used English instead of an Elven transcript, subtitle.
Right.
Because then it's a little harder for you to get into the character just being like English. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm reading this. I'm reading the subtitles. It's harder to just get into why he's so angry or a lot of it was bad guy talk. Once after we established the beginning. And then Odin's grandfather thing was Algrim. I like that guy.
Yeah.
It was pretty badass. I wouldn't mind having that helmet
that
for
was
next
a pretty
year's.
cool helmet.
Pretty badass helmet. So, good work, character designers.
You know what I compare him to, though? I remember the first time I walked out of Thor, I remember thinking, Malekith is this film's Nero from the first Star Trek movie.
I completely have the same thought.
Yeah. He's not a menacing dude whatsoever. He's not memorable. He is the weakest part of a very good film. That he was just there as the token bad guy to put the things in motion. And I think they could have done more with Malekith. But, at the same time, the focus of this movie was going to be Thor and Loki.
Exactly.
And maybe they didn't want to take too much away from that, including the villain.
He was the vehicle, and I liked that.
He was the vehicle.
There certainly could be on the, when the Thor DVD comes out, I'm sure there might be 15 to 20 minutes of extra scenes if they want to put them in. And I bet a lot of them are that love triangle with Sif and some Malekith cutting room stuff because they couldn't weight it too much. I felt it was a perfectly well-made movie. It rocked. It didn't there weren't any parts where it was it's a 10-minute drag out section. Everything was really I left that movie like completely satisfied and happy. Like after having waited, what was it, 3 years? Like since Thor to this movie,
Right.
You know, it might be 3.5 years. That's a long way to like see a film like of characters continuing. You know.
What else stood out to any of you guys about as far as negatives about the film?
This isn't like
moving
a
on.
negative about the movie. It's more of just the choice. You know, with Marvel, like they have a thing where if you are an actor playing a character in their universe, you can't play another character. So I feel like the casting of Idris Elba, I love Idris Elba, but
Me
him
too.
as Heimdall, like I think it's a waste of his talent. He should be like a bigger character in the Marvel universe. He should be a Black Panther or a Luke Cage or something like that.
I agree, but I'm just happy that he's Heimdall because he brings with it such
yeah.
a majestic weight
Oh,
to that
he
character.
does.
I
Yeah.
definitely agree with you. I'm just saying, as an overall, as the Marvel universe, it is kind of a waste.
And he had a bigger role in this film than the
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, for sure.
at
We actually got to
least.
see a little bit in action.
Yeah, he got
he
to
takes
kick
out
some-
a ship
I
by
know.
himself.
Come
That
on, that was
Yeah, but
awesome.
they're not going to have a Heimdall movie. That's the
True.
thing.
Yeah.
You
I
never
would love to see him
know.
as
He
Black
should be a
Panther. I
lead
agree.
character in a movie. That's how good
Black
he
Panther.
is.
Here's a little negative point. I was talking with my gal about the movie afterwards, and we both said Kat Dennings. Like she's
I was
going
gonna bring that up
she's
next.
She's a great actress. She's beautiful. She's funny. I felt that her being such a comedic role in this already funny, naturally funny movie, they didn't have to make her so stupid. That's my she could have been like.
And I loved her in the first one.
I know that they
She
just
was the character was
perfect
great
in the first
one.
movie. They dumbed her down to like I'm a everything I say is a joke, which was I think a negative, not for the movie but just for her character. Like they didn't have to make her stupid. She could have just been like the same character that she was. I'm Jane's assistant. Why would Jane Foster keep an annoying girl who says jokes all the time as her assistant? You know, I mean, it's sort of like I think they overdid it a little bit with her. And I know they brought her back for reshoots, so maybe they're like, add some more flavor with her and
I
the
like
intern.
That she had an intern though.
I like the intern. No, I mean I like
Who's
those
her
interns.
age?
I like the intern segments and things like that. I just felt it was just a little pushed.
I didn't
the
get that she
humor.
was so dumb. I just got that every line was a witty
a joke.
jab.
I felt
That's
like they
what
were
it
But I
trying
didn't-
too hard.
I didn't
Yes.
feel like some of the lines were that good, though.
Yeah.
I felt like
Yeah.
some of them were supposed to be jokes, and you could tell because the scene ends right after that. But some of them didn't even play off that well. But to be honest with you, I really don't like the way they handled most of the female characters in the movie. Actually, I'll say probably all of them except for Frigga. I didn't think that they used Sif enough. She was extremely underutilized.
They used none of
And
the Warriors 3 and
they
Sif enough.
absolutely don't take advantage of the tension that should be happening between Jane Foster and Sif. I feel
That
like
one
that's
scene
a
was
huge.
pretty cool though.
But there was a
Very
second.
subtle.
When she
Very
looked
But
subtle.
at her with the
Yeah.
glare, I was like,
that
ooh, I love it.
was exactly a second of screen time.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough. I think that is a great opportunity to show some tension, to kind of create a dynamic between those two characters, and I feel like you don't see enough of that.
A lot of it has to do with the fact that she got injured because she had a bigger role in it, so we don't really know.
She
But even
missed out
so,
on a
that
lot of her
doesn't have to
shooting
be
days.
Yeah.
a physical.
Yeah, but maybe that worked because I loved them on the battlefield, that opening scene and
Yeah.
their banter. I
Yeah.
loved that. And, Jane Foster, I love me some Natalie Portman. She is one of the most beautiful, talented humans. But honestly, I wanted her to die, and I wanted Sif.
Yeah, I
I
wanted
wanted
her to die
Sif
too.
Well-
and Thor's relationship to blossom. And we don't know if that's not where they're going. But, and I think she was okay with what she was given with this. But again, I love the romance of the warriors much more. So
There's a better dynamic between Thor and Sif.
Yeah.
There's like a
Yeah.
tension there.
Yeah.
There's a camaraderie in
Yeah.
it, kind of like a playful back and forth that I don't think Jane Foster's
Yeah.
character has. So they're
Although-
just kind of like in love. We still don't really know why Thor and Jane Foster are in love.
No,
we've
never
seen
felt
two
that
movies,
chemistry.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
other than the fact that he's really good looking, she's really good looking. That's it.
they'd have hot babies. I'll give them that.
The one thing I'll say about that thing, I will say that I was looking forward to a bigger love triangle storyline, but really, what more did we need? They established in those two quick scenes that Sif does have, beyond just camaraderie, she has an affection for Thor. They established that.
Yeah.
I didn't need another scene to
It
tell me
was
she had.
established.
And but also at the same time, they really established that she is so loyal to Thor that she made the choice to make Jane Foster a non-issue.
Mm-hmm.
You need me to go and rescue this girl that you're picking over me? I'll do it.
Yep.
And she goes and does that. And I don't know if they weren't going to make the movie about the love triangle, then I don't know how much more we needed to see.
Yeah.
Even though I wanted to see more, I don't know how much more we needed. That wouldn't have just been repeating what they kind of presented to us without a lot of words.
Right.
I love when the Warriors 3 all went to Loki. If you betray him, it was so good.
Whereas now we know Loki could have killed any of them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
still, that was
love
really
that.
great.
And it's, I agree they didn't use the Warriors 3. They didn't use them enough.
Yeah.
I mean, it was cool that Volstagg is the bigger of the Warriors.
He's so good.
Fandral got a cool scene. I think
Yep.
Hogan got hosed. It was like, stay on your planet of Rimblescrimp or whatever it's called. The planet they save at the beginning. He got kind of jacked a little bit. He phoned it in. I think there was one other scene with him. Was he on a phone or something? Like Hogan was like teleporting. I can't remember. He was like, yes, I will not be there. But Volstagg had a cool scene where like he had about 100 dudes jump on him. He's like, one of
Ray
those.
Stevens is so great.
He's great.
He's hilarious. He's
So
awesome.
yeah, I mean that's what you get. Marvel, do a Warriors 3 short film,
Yes.
please.
Oh yeah, even just like a web.
Yeah,
a
you
web
guys are rocking those short
Sure.
films. Warriors 3, son, bust it. Let's do.
They should have brought him. I felt like they should have brought him at the end to at least fight a little bit. You know.
Yeah, I mean that's what you were saying though. I agree. Those 3 characters, the Warriors 3 and Sif, underutilized.
Yeah.
So bust them out into a little short 10-minute action film. Have them go somewhere. Go to one of those other 9 realms. You know.
I will say, actually, something I did like going back to Jane Foster is I feel like this movie really did a great job of blending sci-fi and fantasy, and I feel like Jane Foster's character was a big part of that in the ether and everything we see on Asgard too, and Alan Taylor being a part of it. He kind of does this cool thing where they blend these 2 genres, which I really
Yeah.
like, and you
Yeah.
don't see
It's
happen
true.
that often
Yeah.
in movies like this.
Yeah, especially with the battle scenes with like flying skiffs. You have like old warriors with like laser cannons and like
And it almost had Star Wars feel
so
too.
awesome. Yeah,
Like
like
the
the
old Star
super
Wars
like
movies.
10-year-old in me was so happy that those scenes were like happening. I was
How
like, I
cool
can't
are
believe
those
that's happening.
black hole grenades that the Dark
yeah.
Elves.
Amazing.
Those were awesome.
Dangerous too.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm running. I don't
And 5,000
Yeah.
years old.
I know, right?
And they still work great.
See, that's why I would say, like, the argument with the Dark Elves and Asgard is like Asgard and the Dark Elves, they've always had that kind of like cyber science fiction armor that shoots lasers because they had that when they were fighting the 5,000 years ago. You saw the Asgardians show up and they're blasting blue lasers. The elves had the red lasers. Same thing like Star Wars, red and blue, you know?
Kind
Yeah.
of reminded me of those Krypton scenes in Man of Steel.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
All the Asgard stuff, kind of
But still-
technology blended with
Yeah.
that.
They just made the iPad thinner. Couldn't they, in 5,000 years, make the palace shield around the
I
Asgard
know.
palace go up faster than that
No.
in
Leave
5,000
it to
years?
the
No.
tech guy.
Yeah, that's
for
right
that
out
stuff to bother
of
him.
Dune from 1984. Like, we're raising the shields. I'm throwing grenades. They're going over the.
There's
Yeah.
a scene, so come on.
I know, right? You guys, man, you're gonna freak out. Heimdall does like a running jump off of a bridge,
That's
jacks himself
amazing.
onto an invisible ship, cuts it
Invisible
open.
ship.
Yeah, come on. That's crazy. That's awesome.
So good. I love that Alan Taylor it's so important to him to shoot on location at a variety of different
Yeah.
places. I could really feel the richness of the different realms because of that.
Yes.
And when we spoke to him, he was just so adamant. It needs to be I'm not a soundstage kind of guy. He likes to get dirty, and I felt that really made the worlds pop up for me a lot more.
Yeah, I'm sure with his experience with Game of Thrones,
Exactly.
because all of that is on location.
Exactly.
You feel like this is a different world, So I think he brought that to this
I do
movie.
too. And that volcano for the Dark Elves, that's so cool.
Now, was I the only one who noticed too that they seemed, when it comes to Asgard and the Asgardians and Odin and Thor, they use this film, I feel like, to backtrack a bit on the fact that they're gods, because in the first film we hear Odin at the making one of his speeches, and we hear him saying, "I have watched over and protected the 9 realms since the time of the great beginning." Really? Well, because in this movie, you're talking about, no, my dad took care of that before.
Right.
It's the great beginning became after your dad. And they were talking about how we're not gods. And then in this one, Odin says, the 9 realms are not eternal. They have their... Really? Well, in the first movie, you called Asgard the realm eternal. Is it eternal or is it not? So it felt like in this one, they rewrote the eternal and godlike aspect of the characters a little bit, to the point that it was a little bit inconsistent. Didn't bother me. It just
I think
stood out
it's
to
a
me.
good move because then
Yes.
you bring danger to the element. Because if they're all gods and they're all immortal, who cares?
Frida
If
couldn't
they're
die.
all
Yeah.
fighting, then who cares? You don't worry about them. But now with
5,000 years
urgency.
versus 100 years.
Yeah.
That was his big
It
beef
does-
with Jane
Yeah.
Foster. Like, she's gonna be dead in like 1 second.
In
you
a
know?
blink of an eye.
Yeah.
Raises
Yeah.
the stakes a little bit more.
Yeah,
I agree
sense
with
of
you.
urgency. I liked it.
Actually, negative point for me, one of the things I wish they would have flavored up a little bit was that book. When you just brought it up, like he was talking about, well, Malekith had this energy thing.
It was
and
very
just
Harry
these,
Potterish.
Yeah, these drawings with with like
book.
some kind of weird little 3D spiral thing coming out of his hands. And then the next page, the same exact thing. I was like, we just saw Man of Steel where we have 3D moving liquid metal, like for storybook time. It was like back in when we had the Kryptonian astronauts, like some dudes like weird head with like floating astronauts, all liquid metal. And then this was like, here's a book with like 4 flower petals moving. I was like, that was and really, literally, that's such a minor complaint. For me, that's really, that and just a few inconsistencies with good humor versus like forced humor. The movie's like a straight up like 98 out of 100 for me, like A+, like super. I enjoyed it. Can't wait to see it a second time, a third time. I'm a big Thor fan too, so I personally liked it better than the first movie. But to me, it's just adding on. It's like the first movie I loved, and this is just like, wow, what a great sequel. So.
All right. Well, with that being said, let's go to closing thoughts. Now that we've talked about the positives and negatives, let's do our closing thoughts. Amy Rose, let's start with you.
But shouldn't we talk about the spoilers first? The teaser clips?
Oh,
Yeah.
you mean the post-credit
Yeah.
scenes?
Let's talk about those.
You're right. Let's do the post-credit scenes. There are 2 post-credit scenes, and one is more the way I describe them. One is more teaser-ish, and one is just for fun.
Yeah.
The teaser is. I'm going to tell you right now. Didn't care for either of them. I felt like the one with the Collector and Benicio del Toro.
Mm-hmm.
Visually, it looked like it was shot on a $300 Best Buy camera in HD. It really did.
Yeah,
it really did.
It definitely didn't have a pro.
I have an addition to that, but go ahead.
Okay. I thought Benicio del Toro's Collector character was a little bit too hammy. Just a little bit.
It seemed very, very forced.
Very hammy.
Very charactery.
And it's like, wouldn't the Asgardians do a little bit more vetting and background checks on the guy they're going to hand over one of the Infinity Gems to? Yeah. This dude clearly has people prisoner in his ship in glass cases. Is this the guy we want to hand an Infinity Gem to? And it just, and the girl in pink, it felt, you know what it felt like? Do you remember Serenity? Yeah. Remember the Watcher? He had his robotic girlfriend. It looked and felt like her, just a different color. But there was nothing about it that made me go, ooh, you should have had Rocket Raccoon in that shot. You should have had, they should have done something else with Guardians of the Galaxy other than the Collector. I wasn't impressed with it.
I think that it just confirmed that he's working for Thanos, like that it's all going to tie back into that. James Gunn is a kooky individual, and I think that we got a glimpse of the kind of tone. This is going to be really out there.
Yeah.
A lot of the characters. So to me, it just teased that, and I thought it was great. Benicio del Toro is a fantastic actor. It was very hammy, but I think that's going to be part of the charm here, is because there is a talking raccoon, a walking tree. Like, there's a lot of out there characters here, and I feel like it's going to be, again, rooted halfway in reality and halfway in fantasy and a little bit of everything. So I thought it was fun. The other one was just like, all right, like, cool, he's jumping back and forth, like, whatever, the creature, like, it's fine.
I was expecting Benicio del Toro to, like, bust out in some Star Wars prequel, like racist accent or something. Because he was, like, he was right on that edge, but...
He didn't go over that edge, though.
He didn't, but he was getting pretty close.
All right, check it. For
you
me...
You brought me an Infinity Gauntlet, man.
For me, right from the very first shot with a weird pink girl in a strange outfit... I was like, all right, they're giving you the tone and flavor of Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. And Guardians of the Galaxy is going to have a little bit of that Doctor Who from 1982 flavor to it. It just feels that way, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
No.
Like, I thought Benicio del Toro's like, when you're watching the scene, you're like, oh wow, his costume is like put together all crazy styles. What's that lamb skin in the back with like weird little plastic rubber gloves? Like, it's really, really kind of like a crazy mad scientist, and that's their take on the Collector, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
We don't even know. We don't know if he's working for Thanos.
I feel like
that he's collecting.
I bet he's not working for Thanos. I think Ronan is. I don't think the Collector is.
I think the Collector is like on like a Watcher.
Working for?
Well, I think he's like a Watcher type character. He's one of those like, I'm a powerful dude that people trust me to collect stuff. I can't give it to you. Yeah, it's like
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see
but
how
you know
they.
What? I feel like if they're going for this over-the-top kooky thing, and that's what they're trying to show us and establish and set up for this movie, we needed a little bit more. I just felt like
it's one scene. That's all it's supposed to be.
I wanted to see something else happen. I want a little more action, or maybe another character be introduced in that moment, because I felt like I love Benicio del Toro. He's one of my favorite actors of all time. He's on my fantasy hall pass draft list, basically. I love him. But I just didn't really feel like that last scene gave us that much to tease us and get us excited for anything.
That stand out more. What was the last movie you and I saw together that we were actually sitting together in a theater with? It was Wolverine.
You're right.
And the post-credit scene
Best
of
ever
Wolverine
made.
So
was the
good.
best
Really?
ever.
Best ever made.
And so now the next post-credit scene I saw was this one, and it's like, that didn't give me the chills.
You know
at all.
why though?
Like,
Because
I agree
the
with you
post-credit
100%.
scene in Wolverine was better than the entire movie of Wolverine. That's why. Because you're like, wow, that was incredible. That's the best part of the entire rest of the movie. Because the rest of the movie was kind of
But
lame.
then you look at
this
Iron
movie,
Man 3, where it had nothing to do with anything. So
but that was
sometimes they have
great.
fun. Yeah.
I'm just
But it
saying,
was
like,
comedic and cute
and this did tie
and
into
involved
the
all the
universe, which I liked,
characters.
so.
all right, well, let's get back to
Okay.
Thor.
Right.
Because I'm sure we're going to have lots of time
So
to talk
final
about Guardians
thoughts,
of the
sorry.
wait,
Galaxy.
the second post-screen,
Right.
post-credits thing. You didn't guys talk about the little creature jumping
I
around.
just thought that was
It was funny,
Yeah.
but you know
Silly.
what?
It wasn't necessary.
They should have.
It was okay.
I thought the scene of that creature, which was obviously the same breed of dog from the first Thor,
Right.
I thought it was very creative, and seeing him running and jumping after birds, that's great. But here's the thing: that post-credit scene was about 45 seconds long, and about 37 of those seconds was just Thor showing back up and giving Jane Foster a kiss, and then 5 seconds of boom.
That
Right.
was so
They should have
cheesy.
given us like 30 seconds of that thing doing
Yeah.
other dog-like
Yes, that
behavior,
would've been amazing.
like
That would've been
chasing
cute.
a rolling truck or
Yeah.
something like
Oh,
that. That
yeah.
would have been better. I
That
think.
kiss
I agree.
was so silly too. It was like,
Yeah.
like felt like Baywatch kind of style. It was really
I'm kind
silly.
of okay with that.
Yeah, I liked it. I
I
liked
love
it. I liked
romance,
it.
but I thought it was
Corny.
really
It was a
silly.
cool little tag, and then you get the little flavored jumpy dog thing. You know, I'm
Oh,
with you though.
And before we get to the route, I forgot the other scene that I really, really loved. That you just reminded me of it when Thor finally shows back up and Jane Foster goes over, and I'm glad she slapped him because she would have been pissed. Goes over and slaps him again. It's like, what's going on? When the bridge was destroyed, all the 9 realms fell into chaos. I had to go out and stop the slaughter and save millions of innocent lives. And she's like, okay, yeah. It's like, that I really
I
Yeah.
love
like
the
that
double
scene.
slap action. I like the Loki
Yeah.
slap too.
And I like that Odin was all pissed off that Jane was there, and I liked that whole dynamic too.
Yes.
I thought
Yes.
that was
He would
pretty
have
cool.
been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, now we're finally going to get to closing thoughts. Amy Rose, let's start with you and work our way down.
Closing thoughts. This is everything I wanted this film to be. I had so much fun. It was a great amount of humor, action. I got more Asgard. I love the realms. I thought Alan Taylor's direction was fantastic. The Loki Thor relationship is one of my favorite in all of comics, and I thought they really continued the arc. And yeah, I loved it. I had so much fun. I walked out of there with a big smile on my face, and yeah, I loved it.
Dennis?
I thought it was a lot of fun, great action, a lot of comedy. I think not in terms of best movies, but most fun. Probably third on my list this year. I have Pacific Rim, then Star Trek Into Darkness, and then Thor 2. So I highly recommend it.
Schnepp?
Absolutely love this movie. If you're a Thor fan or a Marvel fan, this one delivers on all fronts. I was thoroughly entertained throughout. It had so much humor that I wasn't expecting, especially between Thor and Loki. Just the sibling rivalry that was refreshingly reflavored in this. I thought they might have tapped out on it, but they just obviously. I'm glad Loki is around for Thor 3, which they got to do Beta Ray Bill. Sif's going to be with Beta Ray Bill. It's going to be crazy. They're going to fight Surtur. Come on, do that one. So it just makes me more excited for a third Thor because this one, to me, just added to the first one, as well as just rounding through the entire Marvel universe. They have little tips of the hat to the rest of the Avengers, to Captain Marvel. I think it's just a great film, and I can't wait to see it a second time. So.
Aaron?
I love this movie because you get a little bit more of everything that you got in Thor. You get more from the characters, you see Asgard, you get more context, and I think it's a lot of fun when you get to kind of delve into the things that you really enjoyed about the first movie. So on that case, I think they really excelled, and I love Alan Taylor and what he brought to this project. So it was a big win for me. I definitely liked it a lot.
And being my favorite Marvel film, Thor 2 had the potential to really let me down, and it did not. It delivered on everything it was promised. It was almost everything that I had hoped for. I still don't like it quite as much as Thor 1, but that's a really, really, really high bar. It's also not my favorite comic book film of the year. Man of Steel is still my favorite comic book movie of the year. But believe me, this Thor, while I had some minor detail squabbles about, Odin says it's eternal now, it's not, who cares about that stuff really? Overall, it's well-paced, great acted, great chemistry between the characters. We get the Thor and Loki dynamic that we wanted to see. Odin's a badass. Frigga apparently is one of the universe's great badasses as well. So much good stuff about this movie. It's yeah. So just quickly, out of 10.
8 out of 10.
8.
9.5.
8.5.
And it's an 8 for me. So that's some pretty good Russian judges scoring right there. So, all right, guys, that'll do it for us. I don't know how long we've gone on this. It feels like a long time. But thanks so much for joining us, guys. Listen, if you obviously have seen Thor. I hope you've seen Thor, right? If you're watching this, go see it again. Go on over to www.amctheaters.com right now for your theater, showtime, and movie ticket information. Don't forget to join us every day on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/AMC Theaters, and subscribe to our channel to get more content like this, our daily AMC Movie Talk Show, and our weekend AMC Mailbag Show. So, for Amy Rose, Dennis, John, Aaron, and myself, and our special editor today, Ray, who's over there that you can't see, thanks a lot for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to AMC Movie News on YouTube. It's free and a great way to stay updated with all the latest movie news and check out our daily show, AMC Movie Talk. Also, don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter to stay in the loop for our special prizes, giveaways, and contests.